Hello everyone and welcome back to the series of Python Unleashed. My name is Ajay and today's topic is we are going to look at multiple inheritance. So what exactly is multiple inheritance that we will understand. So as you can see there is a figure in front of you and we have two classes, class A and class B. So these are two independent classes. They are not related anywhere. Okay. So these are two independent classes and then we have a class C which has been inherited from class A as well as from class B. So basically multiple inheritance means where a class is inherited from multiple base classes. So where a class has multiple base classes, such a scenario will be called as multiple inheritance. Okay, so you can see that this particular class C is been inherited from A and it is also been inherited from B. So which means that whatever the attributes class A will have or the behavior, that is the member functions and the member data, will be accessible through the object of class C. And also the attributes and behavior, that is the member data and the member function of class B, will be accessible through the object of class C, isn't it? So all that we have it in B is accessible through the object of C. Okay, so this is the scenario and then we are going to implement this with an example, and this is the example that we are going to take. Now multiple inheritance we have implemented out here. Let us understand what we're going to do is we're going to have a class with the name student. Okay, and student will have its attributes like registration number, roll number, class and section, and it will have some member functions like I have specified over here, that is enter student, which will be used to accept data for student, and then we will have a member function called as display student, which will basically display the data or a data for a particular student. Okay, and then we will have another class, that is class teacher. Class teacher will also have some information like the ID of the class, ID of the teacher, and name of the teacher and the subject that the teacher teaches, isn't it? So we will have ID, we will have name and the subject that the teacher is teaching, isn't it? So class student and class teacher, now these two classes are not related with each other, but as you can see out here we have one more class. We have derived a class with the name called as classroom. Now what is a classroom? Classroom is the class room number in which a particular class and section will be sitting. So we will have a class with the name classroom, and we will have some attributes, that is the member data, like the class room number and the name of the room number. Sometimes you may have a name that has been given to a particular room, and that's it, the ID, that is the room number, and the name of the room number if the user wants to give that. And then we will have the member functions, that is enter room, which we will use to accept the data from the user, and then we will have the display room, which will display the data. Now for this particular room we need a class and section. From where we are going to get that? We can get it from here, right? From which class and which student, which particular student and a particular class and section is allocated to this particular room number. And also in that particular room number, the class that is got allocated, which all teachers are actually teaching in that particular class, isn't it? So this is the entire model basically. Okay, so let us just implement this so that you can understand it in a much better way. So let's switch to Python now. Okay, already I have this typed code out here just to save the time. So we have a class, you can see out here there is a class called as student, and these are the member, these are the the member variables, that is the object variables, and we have a registration number, roll number, name, class and section. Similarly, we have the member functions, that is enter data, that is enter student, and where we are accepting data for a particular student. So we will be storing all the details of the students over here, and then we have display student, where we are actually displaying the data of a particular student. Okay, And then you can see we have a one more class with the name that is teacher, and then we are storing the object variables that we have is id, name and subject. Id will be just the id of the teacher and the name of the teacher and the subject that the teacher is taking, so that's the subject. And then we have the member functions, that is enter teacher to accept the data, and the display teacher which will be used to display the data of a particular teacher. And then at the last you can see out here we have the class, that is the classroom, right? And then this is the syntax how you can inherit two classes. So these are like having two base classes. So classroom is a class which has two base classes, and so we can call this as a multiple inheritance. And you can see it has been inherited from teacher comma student. I can also make this as student comma teacher. At this point it won't really make any difference. So student comma teacher, so basically it has been inherited from student also, and it has been inherited from teacher also. So this is a multiple inheritance. It has its own constructor, that is the room number, the name, and also one more attribute that we have is the capacity. Capacity basically will store that how much capacity that room has and how many students can sit in that particular class. Okay, so that's the capacity, that's one more attribute. Okay, and then you can see out here I have just evoked the functions, not the function, the constructor of student and teacher. I need to do this because once I create an object of the class, that is classroom, then this particular function, that is the constructor of the classroom, will get evoked. And then as what we have learned in the previous tutorial, that it is up to the user to evoke the constructors of the derived of the base classes. Okay, so I have just evoked that particular constructor for student, and I have also evoked the function, the constructor for the class teacher, using these two statements. And then this will have its own member data, that is the object variables. And then we have enter room just to accept the data from the user, and the display room to display the data for that particular room, isn't it? So this is the entire thing. Now let us just create an object A with the class that is of class, that is classroom. Okay, so I've just created a class A. Name of my object is A, of class, that is classroom. Okay, and now if you see, if I say A dot, and you can see I have access to all the data members as well as all the member function. You can see display student, display teacher, enter room, enter student. All these functions are accessible to me. Why it is accessible? Because I have this is a multiple inheritance, and there is a class with the name classroom, and it is inherited from two classes, that is student and teacher. So whatever is there in student will become a part of this particular class, and whatever is there in the class teacher will become a part of this particular class. Okay, so you can see if I just have this dot out here and I try to access the object variables or the member functions, and you can see all the member functions out here, that is display student, display teacher, enter room, enter students, everything is accessible to me. So how I'm going to do it? First thing that I will do is I will just accept the data for a particular student. Okay, so that is A dot enter, and you can see enter student, right? And then let us access the A dot enter teacher, and at last I will accept I will evoke the function A dot enter room. Okay, and to display I will simply use A dot display, that is a display student, and then I will have A dot display teacher, and at last I will have A dot display, that is display room. Okay, so using one particular object I can access everything, that is all the member data as well as the member functions. So I have evoked the member functions out here. Now let us just run this code and see the output. Okay, here it is. Enter the registration number. Now you can see we are just evoking the function that is enter student. So over here, enter student, you can see it is asking me to enter the registration number, the message out here. So if I give just one, roll number I can also give as 1, then name I'll give it as a J, class as 10, and enter the section as A. And then you can see it is accepting, we are it is asking the user to enter data for a particular teacher. So I will just say teacher ID, I can give it as 1, name I can give it as teacher, I can give it as maybe Nitin, and subject that the teacher is taking, that I will give it as maybe English. Okay, and then at last it is asking for the details of the room number. So room number ID I can keep it as 1, that's the room number. And if you want to give any name, otherwise you can just skip this and enter the capacity, that is 12, and then you can see the output out here, right? So this is the student detail, that is this one, and from here you can see the details of the teacher, and at the last you can see the details of the room. Okay, so this is how the entire thing is working, and this is how you can have multiple inheritance. Okay, now everything looks very good till now, but if you might have observed very closely that we have given different names to all the member functions. So if we talk about student, I have given enter student, display student, and for the class teacher I have said enter teacher, display teacher, and for the classrooms I have said enter room and display room. But what if I give all the names same? What if I just give this as function name as enter and this as display? Over here also I keep this as enter, over here also I keep this as display, and at the last also I can have just enter and display. Now what will happen? Now over here we will have this thing, we can say that enter and display is we are overriding the functions, that is enter and display, but the question is which function of which class I'm overriding it, enter and display, because if you see the diagram out here, that if I have the same functions enter display and enter display, so if I'm overriding enter out here, for example I just remove this, okay, and this I'll keep the names as same, okay, and so everywhere the the function names are same. Now the question is, if I'm overriding enter and display, so which function of which class it is overriding? Since this is multiple inheritance, it is inherited from two classes. So if I'm inheriting this enter, so which function it is inheriting, this or this? Similarly for display also it is a confusion whether this or this, right? So this is what we are going to learn in my next tutorial, how to resolve this and how to come up with a better solution of all this. And then we are going to understand what is MRO. With MRO, we are going to understand that is method resolution order, and we are going to understand that. We are going to discuss in detail about this in my upcoming tutorial. Okay, that's it for today. Bye for now.